Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Quillen with the Chicago Tribune. On behalf of SABEW, welcome. Today's session will be on using LinkedIn to develop story ideas and build your professional brand. We're really excited to have Yumi Wilson here. She's going to be presenting today's session. Yumi is president of the Journalism and Women Symposium. She's also a tenured journalism professor at San Francisco State University, a social media expert, and a former LinkedIn trainer. Her previous positions in journalism include deputy readers representative at the San Francisco Chronicle. She was also a reporter at the Associated Press. Yumi is a recipient of a Fulbright Research Scholar Grant and the Knight Wallace Fellowship. And her research interests include multi-ethnic family life, diversity issues in journalism, and campaign finance. To ask a question during today's session, we ask that you use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And I also wanted to mention that Yumi has graciously agreed to do a follow-up tutorial with one randomly selected participant on today's call. So we will be following up with one participant. We're going to choose that person after the call randomly, and when we'll be following up with you with details about that. So with that, I will hand it over to Yumi. Yumi?
Thank you so much, and I'm happy to be sharing your Monday with you. I am going to get started. You know a little bit about me now, so I am going to talk about 4 things today, and I know that many of you are familiar with LinkedIn. I'm hoping that these tips and tricks can help you in terms of your job as a journalist. So first, I want to briefly talk about optimizing your profile, and many of you probably already have a profile, but there are ways to optimize it, and that essentially means to increase the ranking that you have, which actually helps in terms of search results, search engine optimization. I'm also going to talk a little bit about finding sources and different things you can do to find sources and find story ideas. And then last, I want to talk about promoting your brand, whether that is a combination of your individual brand and your organizational brand, or if you are independent or freelancer, just your brand. So first, I wanted to give you the latest in terms of LinkedIn by the numbers. There are 500 million LinkedIn users. And the interesting thing, at least to me, is that many of them are outside of the United States. This graph shows you that only 133 million are here in the United States. And the other thing that's important is even though there are 500 million users, not all of them are on LinkedIn as often as others. And so that total number of monthly active LinkedIn users is about half of the 500 million. So 250 million are monthly active users. So with that little background, I want to start with optimizing your profile. So the key in optimizing your profile is to fill out as many sections as possible. And you'll know if you haven't filled out all of the sections because LinkedIn will actually cue you and say either at the top of your profile page or on the right, hey, here's some sections you haven't yet added. By adding as many sections as possible and becoming either intermediate or all-star, that's the status, what happens is that your name goes up to the top, or when someone is searching for an expert in, let's say, social media and technology, those keywords are typed into a search box. People with an optimized profile will come up higher in those search results. So if you haven't already done so, take a moment and fill out all of those sections, including summary, your expertise, your skills, and volunteering. So the other thing that has happened in the last few years is that people are writing in first person. And I think the concept comes from the idea that even though LinkedIn is a professional network, it's a social network. So when you're talking about your accomplishments, stories and projects that you've worked on, try doing it in first person, very, very different from that traditional resume. You can even add rich media, and essentially it means you can add a URL. And in 99% of the cases, that URL will go into the LinkedIn system and an image will be populated, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's a great idea to add some of your work, links to your work, or even to your website, not only in the job experience section, which you're looking at now, but also in your summary. If you do have questions for me later about the profile, we will be taking questions soon, but I wanted to get you through some of the other elements of LinkedIn, which includes how to find sources. So company pages, there are millions of company pages on LinkedIn. It's a great way for journalists to find sources, not just by following the company pages, but if you look here, you can see on the screen that I have pulled up Apple. And on the right, you're going to see some faces of people. So depending on how many connections you have on LinkedIn, you're going to see people who are currently or in the past, they've worked at Apple. So Apple is somewhere in their job experience. And as we know as journalists, people who have worked at a company and they know you, they might be the greatest sources that you can find. If they can't answer the question themselves, they'll often tell you where to go. And you can find it right on the right of a company page. The other way you could find sources is to check out the company updates. So example here is that I clicked on Inc. magazine, and an update that they shared is, you'll want to make time for this. Facebook has a stunning amount of data about you. Here's how. So these updates and the people who like and comment on the updates could yield some interesting sources. And I'm doing a deeper dive here on connections at Apple. So when I looked at people who I'm connected to who work at Apple, I clicked open the 13 results here, and you can see how, if there were their first degree connections or second. And then you can also see who your shared connections are, and that's another way to find potential sources. Now, if you want to look for former employees, and oftentimes former employees are better candidates to give you some information, perhaps off the record or as background, that might lead you to what you're really looking for, you can do that search. And as you probably know, search has changed quite a bit over the past few years on LinkedIn. The easiest way to look for former employees is when you are searching for people, and you can see here, I am doing a people search, and the third box, which is in blue, says current companies. If you click on that box, you're going to be able to unclick the box for Apple. And what that'll allow you to do is to narrow down the search to people who used to work at Apple, or Facebook in this case that you're seeing here. So the results of nearly 30,000 results, you can narrow the search by using, for example, former employees. And there are other filters that are still available if you only want to look for first degree connections, or you want to narrow it down by location. And then if you want to look at all of their filters, you can do that here. Another way to find sources is to check out some of the groups that are on LinkedIn. So when you do a group search, you definitely want to make sure that you are in the groups tab. And then once you do that, you'll see results. And even if you're not a member of a group, they will give you some important information. So for me, example, I clicked on Learning, Education, and Training Professional with 215,000 members, and the admins are here. So even though I am not connected to this group, I'm not joined the group, I can see their admins, and oftentimes admins could be great go-to people. They might help you with your story, or they might lead you to others. The other thing that you can do in groups is you can also see your own connections. So again, another way, just as we talked about the company page, groups and knowing who is connected to you in that group could be great ways to find sources. The other thing that you can do on LinkedIn is you can search the content. And again, you can see that I'm on the content tab. And if I type in a keyword, I did this about a week ago, and so I typed in the word shooting, And what happened was I started to see content that has the keyword shooting in it. Now, here on the right, you can see that you can do a search of feeds two different ways. One by relevance and the second by latest. So you can change that if you're looking for the latest news or the most relevant. The LinkedIn algorithm will also give you suggestions so that they can see that you're looking for something with the keyword, for example, shooting in it. They suggest looking at what people are saying at SF State University, which is where I teach, and other things, groups and social media consultant jobs. So that's a little bit about sources. So now I want to talk a little bit about story ideas. So here you can see that what I've done is I've clicked on following fresh perspectives. Now, you can set up your feed so that you can start to see content. And if you're covering a beat and you really just want to follow people and see certain types of content, you can essentially set up your feed. And the way that you would do that is here I have it on follow fresh perspectives, or I can do it by the people I'm following or the people who are following me. Many of you may know this, but you may have a number of followers. I find that journalists tend to have a lot of followers, people who are not connected to you, but they want to follow your content. So you can change the way that you see the news feed by choosing things like innovation. You could follow the President of the French Republic, Emmanuel Macron. You could follow sections or topics like business and Justin Trudeau of Canada and so on. And what happens over time is the people you follow, the kinds of topics you follow will start to show up in your feed. I think what's really important when I work with journalists and other groups is that you want to be able to control what you see in your feed. There's often a lot of white noise or just too much information. And so what I would recommend is going into your settings, your privacy settings, and changing the activity in your network. And here you can click off of things like birthdays, job changes if you wanted to. All of this is actually set by default on. And so I noticed that if you have it on, then you might get too much, and a way to just start to narrow down the feed so it's becoming more relevant to your topics and to your beat would be to turn these off. You can take even more control of the newsfeed by when you're in the newsfeed and you see content that you do not find relevant, you can go to the 3 dots on the right here and you will have some choices. It'll say delete this notification, or you can turn it off, stop receiving notifications like this. And just as Facebook and other social platforms do this, when you start to turn off notifications, the algorithm is learning what you like and what you don't like. So it's another way to really start to have a feed that represents your beat and your areas of interest. So just like Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn now has this trending on your homepage. So when you're on your homepage, for example, you'll see what people are talking about now. And this is a great way to find out what LinkedIn members are talking about. More and more, you're going to see that they're talking about news stories, some of them that can be helpful in terms of finding story ideas and even sources. And here, this is all about Tesla probe, the hashtag Tesla autopilot used during the Tesla crash. That these are posts, and posts that are written on LinkedIn are public to all members. So this is another way to find out what people are talking about if you were looking for information on Tesla. And Tesla, by the way, the day that I ran the search was trending. Last, promoting your brand on LinkedIn is as easy as going to the homepage and writing a post. So you can mention people, which is a great idea, so that more people can see the post. And you can also do hashtags. Hashtags are useful because you have the opportunity to post to the public, anyone on LinkedIn, the public and Twitter, which is what I advise, or just your connections. When you post to the public and Twitter, you have more opportunities to be discovered. Your post has more opportunity to be discovered. And so if you're promoting an article or a project that you just produced, doing that will hopefully get more eyes back to the post. And the algorithm works like this. If people are starting to look at your post, comment on your post, like your post, then it's going to surface on other people's feeds. So the idea is that not only do you say that you have a great article, but you got to get other people to mention, like, and take some sort of social action. So what works on LinkedIn might not work on Facebook or other platforms. So it's important to remember, because you have 500 million trying to be very productive, very successful, transform their careers, things to post on LinkedIn that work well include jobs and career information. And by the way, some of my most successful posts are when I'll get a notification of a job, a technology editor job available at Bloomberg. It's not a job that I'm planning to apply for, but I will share that on my network and tweet it out, and that gets a lot of activity. Company news is also successful on LinkedIn. So if there's information about your company, you can either share it on your own post or you can share it through your company page. And then, of course, any type of professional content, things that you need to do your job well, or things that you, challenges, struggles, do very well on LinkedIn. How often do you post on LinkedIn? So again, this is another different thing. On Twitter, you know, best practices have shown 6 to 8 tweets might be useful. But on LinkedIn, the recommendation is 1 post per day. And that's because there's one feed, and if you have a lot of connections, you're getting too much content. The other thing that this particular study found is that posting between 10 and 11 a.m. Works best. So even though people start their day much earlier, 10 and 11 is maybe when they have their second coffee break. So that's something to keep in mind. So those are all the things I wanted to cover, you know, optimizing your profile, finding sources, looking for story ideas, and promoting your brand. And now I am going to open it up to questions. And I think if you do have questions, you'll want to type them in the Q&A box.
Thank you, Yumi. This is Kim.
Hi.
To our members, oh yes, we are starting to get some questions here. Yumi, I don't know if you can see,
Yes,
there's one that just came in.
Yes. So I have a question. Can you talk more about the profile and resume sections, some do's and don'ts? Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go live so that you can see my own profile and some do's and don'ts. And there's another question. How do you suggest news organizations newer to LinkedIn build a larger and more audience there? So let me start with a question about news organizations and what they can do to build an audience. Number one, if you're a news organization and you're on the newer side, you definitely want to build out your company page. It's going to take people, so if you have a social media strategist, that person build out the company page. But the key is the action, is the social action that happens. So you want someone consistently posting from the company page, but important is to get either the communications team or employees in general to share and like the company updates. Without that interaction, it is very hard for the post to get discovered by others. Because the way that company pages work on LinkedIn is only your followers would see that content. So if you have only 30 followers for now, only 30 people would see it. The other thing is, if you are a newer company, you'll want to ask your employees after you set up the company page to go back to their own profile page, slowly type in the company name, wait for the drop-down box so that they pick up. Essentially what they're doing is they're going to be connecting to your new company page. So that's another important step. And the other thing is really asking advocates, which really in this case are employees, to promote or talk about the organization and to post on their own profile pages and to connect with the company page. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the original question. And okay, so answered that one. All right. So in terms of resume, come off real quick. So just bear with me 1 second. I'm going to go live here. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm sharing. All right. So in terms of your own profile, in terms of optimization and thinking about ways to build out your story, the most important, I believe, is to create a summary. And a summary of 40 words or more is going to trigger the best results according to the search engine optimization. So 40 words at least in your summary. And as I mentioned during the presentation, speaking in first person, I think, is much more powerful than being in third person, telling your story. Now remember, because your job experience is going to show down below, it's not as important to say what you're doing at the moment in your summary. What you really want to do is you want to tell your overall story, things that you're particularly proud of. And again, remember, because of SEO, you do want to use keywords that showcase what you're good at. So if you're great with investigative journalism, or you're covering, actuaries and certain keywords that define who you are, I would definitely drop them into the summary. The other thing is you can add rich media. So if you've been profiled or you were on a show, on a news program, drop that URL in and it will show up right there. Going back to that original question on the Q&A, I just want to make sure that I asked. Okay, so more about the profile and resume section, some do's and don'ts. Okay, and another don't is, not that any of you are looking for jobs, but let's say you're in the job market and you are looking for that next great job. Most recruiters on LinkedIn are looking for passive candidates. So that means I would not write looking for work, because that would signal I'm an active candidate. They're looking for passive candidates, essentially, which means I am happy what I'm doing. I've got a lot going on. And I'm only interested in talking to you if you have something amazing. So I would not recommend putting things like looking for work. I would recommend putting your contact information, because that way, if someone does not connect with you or you're not connected with someone, they can still see how to quickly reach out to you. Okay, next question. The ability to tag contacts went away. Any ideas how to group your contacts? So yeah, that's going to be a tougher one, because that ability did go away. In terms of grouping people, you could start certain groups. In my messaging system, let me just take a look here. It just has become much harder to group. You might have to do that through a third-party app. And if there are other suggestions, I'd love to hear them as well. Okay, your profile has an extensive summary, but not much listed under each job. Why did you organize it that way? And does that help optimize the profile more? Great question. So I did spend a lot of time on my summary and less time on some of my job experience. So let's take a look at the job experience. So my current job at 14 years has been associate professor of journalism. So I could definitely spend more time building this one out. And I've become just a little lazy. So this is actually a great place. It's funny because I've been building out my CV for promotion and all that. And I definitely think that this could use a spritzer. The recommendation to all of you on this call is spend as much time as you can. Take 3 to 4 lines under job experience, building out what you've done well at that particular job. And if you've gotten a promotion, create another box. So if you've gone from being a beat reporter to the city editor. Those are two different jobs. You should definitely list them that way. The reason is because the keywords that you put into the lines of job description will help in terms how the algorithm sees you and views you in terms of your expertise and your skills. Okay, can you please share again how to find people who previously worked at companies? Okay, so now I'm going to go to the search function here. And let's say that I'm looking for someone who works at Sinclair. So I'll just type in Sinclair. And what happens is you have a very broad search. So you can see here nearly 40,000 results. And you can see the tabs are people, job, content, and more. So if I am looking for people who are at a current company, I can do it this way. So I can go Sinclair. And I'm just gonna move my Q&A box over here. And so here, always use the drop-down boxes when you are in the LinkedIn. The reason is these keywords have already been identified as existing within the LinkedIn platform. So I see that they have Sinclair Broadcast Group, so I'm gonna click on that. And then I'm gonna run the search, I'm gonna add. So what happens now is I have 3 results of people who currently work at Sinclair Broadcast Group. So these are folks who currently work there. Now, they are not connected to me, you can see that. So I'm just gonna click on Cassidy. She currently works here. Now, that is one way to find people who are currently working at a company. Now, if I wanna try a different method is, let's say I wanna go to Sinclair Broadcast Group. This is the Sinclair Broadcast Group company. And you can see here it's the company page. So now I'm going to the company page. And remember how I talked about, you can see who your connections who work there. So I have 5 connections who work there. I am not following the company, but I can still see a number of things on it. So if I click on 5 connections, I will now be taken to that page that I showed you on my PowerPoint, which is, here are the 7 results of people with Sinclair somewhere in their job description. You can see that these are my first degree connections and they are current. So 4 people are current. So I click on that. And then what I want to do is I want to look for former. So I click off of Sinclair and then I apply. And here you can see that these, so I'm just going to click on Manny here. Manny currently works at circa.com, but used to work at Sinclair. So this is how you do that search. Okay, so I hope that answered that question for you. And the next question is, how can companies take full advantage of group pages? Any useful tips? So this is a much more challenging one. There are lots and lots of groups. There are certain groups that have that are doing well. So, for example, Harvard Business Review. So Harvard Business Review, this is their group page. This is a group page, and they're very successful. Actually, this is a company page. Right. So Harvard Business Review, publishing. Okay, so one way to try to get more attention on a group is from your company page. You can talk about your group and try to get people connected. Now, when I was running or moderating groups on LinkedIn, I basically had to post a lot of information and then get those posts out to other people so they would discover the pages or discover the content in my group. The other thing is if you do some sort of contest or some sort of prize that you give to people who come to your group and interact through the group, that could be a way to get more people engaged in the group. Now, you can make groups closed or open depending on what you hope to get out of the group pages. But interactivity on the groups, and let me just show you some of my groups here. I'm just going to go to me, and so when you click on groups, you'll see a number of groups. Oracle actually does a really good job. Oracle's company pages, they have a group page. I find that people who do groups well are those who have a consistent content, but also really religious, or not religious, but very faithful members of the group. I have to say that groups, to me, has become less important on LinkedIn because people can share their information either through their own profile pages and so on. So I have to say that I think it is a challenging thing to get that kind of traction through groups unless you can get a lot of people using the group, joining the group pretty easily. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Yumi, this is Kim. There are a couple of questions that have popped up in the chat function.
Okay.
I can read those to you if that's helpful.
I think I can pull up chat. Hold on one second. Okay. Can you please share again how to find people who previously worked at companies? I think I answered that one.
Yeah, and then there's okay. two below that.
Using hashtags good for LinkedIn. Okay, yes. Using hashtags is good for LinkedIn if you are doing the following. So let's say you're here and you want to post something about Tesla is in the news again, and then you do hashtags Tesla. Now, while the hashtag is not going to have much effect on the LinkedIn algorithm, what happens is if I choose public in Twitter and I tweet this out, my hashtag Tesla is going to be discovered on Twitter's Twitter search engine, which means that I'm going to get more eyes to this post and hopefully back to my link and hopefully back to the to my website or wherever the content is actually originally posted. So that I do recommend it. And you just have to be mindful with the 280 character count on Twitter that, the hashtags do count for that. The second question is, how can I save stories I like to read later? So if you have a story, click out of that. So there are a number of ways that you could save it. You could bookmark it through your own. Here is a story. And this actually drove back to JP Morgan Chase. This is what I would definitely recommend. Notice how, I'm just gonna go back here. They have a post, and this is a great company page example as well. So this is an article being posted, promoted by JP. When I clicked on it, they drove me right back to their website. And I would definitely recommend doing that because you're getting more people to the actual site that you want them to. Now here is an article that's posted on Medium. So depending on the platform that you're driven to, it's going to give you the choices that you have, the ways to save it. On LinkedIn, if you decide to look at articles, for example, there's a product called Elevate. I'm not sure how many of you checked it out. But Elevate, the idea is that employees within a company are sharing and posting content. So the content that you're seeing here, I used to work at LinkedIn. So these, many of these articles are by people who work at LinkedIn. And so if I click on 7 ways to become more mentally immune, this particular article is posted by someone who takes me to Forbes. So she's sharing, and the idea is Elevate is that, and so notice how Forbes gives you these options of saving this article, sharing this article. You can send it to yourself, which is typically what I do. But the idea is if your company is interested in elevating or increasing views, this is a smart way to do it. Elevate. Okay, so now I'm going to just escape out of here and go back. Now, LinkedIn does have a publishing platform. So if you are looking at articles that are published within the LinkedIn platform, then it's easy, much easier to save. And in fact, if I go back home to my own page, if you do post within the LinkedIn platform, you're actually going to see your articles and other people's articles as part of your profile. So here, anytime you post within the LinkedIn platform, it's part of your profile. And so it's much easier to save articles if they've been posted within the LinkedIn platform. The other thing that you're going to be able to see when you start to fill out your profile is, you're seeing my dashboard, but that's because I'm showing it to you, but you can actually see who's viewed your profile, who's viewed your posts, and how you appear in search appearances. So this is very, very helpful because it gives you the metrics that you need to figure out what's working well and what's not working so well on the LinkedIn platform. All right. Question came up through email. Frequently post on LinkedIn to promote business publications, special reports, and scoops. What do you do to measure success? So shares, likes. Okay, so depending on what your goal is, this is a much more of a broader social media question is, if your goal is to drive people back to your website, then you want to have a metric that shows you how many people are actually going to your site. Now, within the LinkedIn platform, you may not be able to measure that. So you may have to think about paying for an analytics system that would measure the number of people who go to social media sites and then are driven back to your website. In terms of interaction, shares and likes, again, it just depends on how many people share and like. Ultimately, if your goal is to drive them back, that to me is more important. Share and likes, when people share or like your content, it just means it has a better chance of being seen by even more people. And that's important because if you go to the newsfeed page, your own newsfeed, a lot of times here you'll see sort by top and recent. So if you have it top, the reason why these particular posts are coming to the top of your feed is because they have a lot of likes and a lot of comments. So if you want to get to the top of people's news feeds, it's important to get people to engage with that content. And if they don't, what happens is it drops to the bottom. And when you are posting your own content, and I'll just show you my content, for example, you will be able to see from your profile, if you click on a story that you've posted, it will give you metrics right there. So you can see how many people viewed it, how many people liked it, how many people commented on it. So you can start to get a sense of, again, what's working, and you can view the stats by clicking here, and it will tell you, even give you a deeper dive, which is how many people from SPJ or people with journalism and New York and so on. These type of metrics are very helpful because it tells you where your audience seems to be coming from, maybe, and will help to, when you think about what I should post next, you can say, okay, well, I really want to reach out to people who are not here right now. So what do I need to do? Or this is my audience and I'm going to write to them. So this is what you can see. Now on a company page, if you are in charge of a company page, it's going to be a little different here. So, Kim mentioned that I'm president of Journalism and Women's Symposium. So here you get metrics as well. So here you can see how many people engaged with your content, how many people commented, how many people shared, and your number of followers. And you can then see organic reach, and then you can show stats for a particular post. So 229 impressions, 7 clicks, 2 social actions, and 3.93% engagement. So all of those metrics are available to you. 1 from your profile page, 2 from a company page as well. Okay, any other questions? Let me go back to.
It looks like a question just popped up in the Q&A queue.
Okay, great. So how do I set my privacy setting to say I'm not actively looking for a new job? Okay, so you can do that several ways. I'm just going to show folks privacy and settings real quick. So you go to settings and privacy. There are a lot of things you can do from here, as I mentioned, but you've got account, privacy, ads, and communication. Those are your 4 tabs going across. And so if you ever want to change who can see your connections, for example, or edit your public profile, you can do it all through here. You can change the kinds of ads you get, your preferences on there, and you can choose communication. So how often do you want to be notified? Do you want to get emails at all? All of these things can make life a little bit easier. So going back to that question, if you're not looking for a job, I think the easiest way to do that is when you are back in your home and you go to jobs, you click on the tab here with the little suitcase, and you can see open candidate. And if you want, you can hit career interest settings and you can simply turn it off. And that is how you will signal that you are not interested. And the other thing that you can do down below here is you can change your status. So where are you in the search? You can say actively looking, casually looking, not looking, but open to offers, not open to offers. So again, the way that I got there, I'm just going to click out of it, is you go to the tabs at the top, home, my network, and jobs, click on jobs, and you'll see a blue box that says career interest settings, and you'll just click on that and you can shape it the way you want it. All right. Any other questions?
To our members, you can ask a question by putting it into the Q&A queue, or you can also, we've gotten a couple of questions through the chat function. So we have just a couple more minutes, but I think there's time for another question or two if there are any out there. So maybe we'll just give it another minute or two, Yumi, and just in case.
Sounds good. And by the way, since I'm on the job page here, you know, LinkedIn's added in a lot of new features that kind of cue you as to what you might want to do. Here you can see they're signaling to me, you can change, you can update your career interests. So if you are changing or transforming or moving into a different line of work, you can actually set the settings so that you can change the kinds of jobs that you're seeing, start date. Here are the titles that have come up for me, but I could click off of some of them if I'm no longer interested, full-time, contract, part-time. These are all newer features, which I think makes it much easier to kind of, if you do want to get people contacting you, at least they have a better sense of what you really would like to do next or in addition to what you're doing now.
Well, it doesn't look like, oh, it looks like we did just get another question or two.
Okay, I did see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question is, I get a lot of notifications about people recommending my skills, such as editing. How important is this skills section? And should I ask people to recommend me for certain skills I want to appear higher in the list? So yes, the skills section is important because it is one part of the algorithm that's used to help someone surface. Like if you say your skills are in content marketing, if you have it under your skills section, then that definitely weighs heavily into the algorithm. So I would recommend people taking that time to fill out skills section, the skills section. You can add up to 50 skills. The more important thing than just listing those skills, however, is to get people to endorse you for those skills. It's also really important that if you are transitioning, for example, years ago, I transitioned from my print journalism skills to more social media and personal branding. And so it did take effort on my part to delete some of the skills that to me were no longer as important as the skills I wanted to be known for, which included social media marketing, and all of those other skills. So I started adding those. And then when I went to events or met people, I would ask them to endorse me for those skills. So that is exactly what I would be doing if you want to appear higher in the list. The next question is, can you enter your education without dates? What if you don't want to say when you graduated? So currently the way that you enter that is you do have to put, and I just want to make sure just in case they haven't changed it. So when you go to profile and you are putting in new information, and remember how I said they'll give you sections to strengthen your profile, like they're saying I should update my education, so why don't I click on that? So here, Solano Community College, they're saying I should add a field of study, but I can hit skip. But let's say that I wanted to add my education. It's just taking a moment to upload. But currently, as it stands now, you do have to add dates. And so I'm not quite sure how to get around. I don't know if there's a hack or an around the way system. But the other thing I will say, the algorithm adds up your job experience. So if you do list 25 years of work, even if you don't put you have 25 years of work, they will add it up that way. So that's something to consider. Even if you don't say it, the algorithm will add up all your different jobs. So I think I answered that question. If you have a further question on that, let me know.
And any other questions from our members? I think that may be it. I don't see any others coming in. Unless, so we can begin to wind down, Yumi, unless you had any other final points. Oh, I did. We did just get one more here in the Q&A queue.
Delete job experience. Absolutely. Yeah. Very easy to do. Yeah. You just go there, and I've worked actually with some folks who did just that. So my screen is a bit frozen, but all you would do is go to your job experience. There's a pencil on the right. Just click on that. Also, there's some dots. So you can simply delete it.
And I see a note from one member who says they just sent one last question in the chat function of the...
Images or videos bump up your status to show more people than just a text update. Well, studies show that when you add an image or a video to a post, you do get more views. And that's across social media platforms. So it's not just LinkedIn. And within the LinkedIn platform, their own studies have shown that if you have a video or an image, you do tend to get more views. So that would definitely be a recommendation. And whether it's a short post from your status update or whether it's a LinkedIn platform blog post, images are definitely recommended. So even when you hit write an article, you're going to see that they will actually suggest that you add an image because they have found that posts that have images and or video just do way better.
That makes sense. Oh, it looks like there may be, I guess there's a follow-up question in the Q&A section regarding deleting job experience.
Yes. So regarding deleting job experience, does that change the algorithm adding up the years? Yes. So if you delete, let's say, all your internships that you had, then those years won't count. You'll have fewer years. And if that's your goal, then that could be good. So, you just want to be mindful that if you only put in 12 years of experience, that's what the algorithm counts. So if someone's looking for a senior editor with 20 plus years, then you wouldn't come up in that search result. But it could also work to the benefit, because that way people don't really know, if there's concern about ageism and things like that. That's another strategy that some people have used to avoid ageism.
So I'm thinking that may be all the questions. We don't have any in the queue, so we can begin to wind down, unless Yumi, I think I started to say this earlier. I don't know if you had any final points you wanted to make. Otherwise, we can begin to wind down.
There is a video component on LinkedIn, so that might be worth checking out. And there's a little bit more feature functionality on your mobile. So that could be something, because everyone now, video is a big thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, okay. Well, I think that looks to be it. Yumi, I just wanted to give you a sincere thank you. This has been a great presentation. I think we're all going to kind of buckle down on our LinkedIn work in the next couple of days after hearing all of this. So much appreciated. I really appreciate your time today. And to our member listeners, if you have a suggestion about a future training topic, please email it to sabew@sabew.org. Otherwise, I think that pretty much concludes today's call. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Yumi, especially.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, everyone. And I look forward to working with one lucky person on their profile.
Yes, we will be drawing a name out of a hat this afternoon. So thank you again, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.